To accelerate economic recovery, former finance minister believes that public consumption should be encouraged. Sharia Banks merger agreement has been signed by 3 Indonesia state-owned banks. Good afternoon, viewers in Indonesia and Singapore. Market Headlines is ready to provide you a number of informations from the business, economic, and capital market sectors. With me, Wicky Adrian. This is Market Headlines. In order to recover the economy, the Minister of Finance for the 2013 to 2014 period, Khatib Basri, stated that economic recovery was largely determined by how quickly the accelerated fiscal stimulus became an increase in public consumption.
Economic recovery will be largely determined by how quickly the fiscal stimulus accelerates to increase public consumption. The Minister of Finance for the 2013-2014 period, Khatib Basri, said that the current government's fiscal posture is in line with efforts to promote economic recovery and create economic opportunities in the next year. However, Khatib reminded that the government needs to ensure that the stimulus in the state budget can maintain and strengthen public consumption. Based on Khatib's calculation, if the government must choose between encouraging investment or consumption, then the most appropriate thing is to encourage public consumption. According to him, this will ensure investment also grows well. Other than that, monetary policy cannot be a short-term solution, so fiscal policy is the main key of the current recovery process.
Tahun depan itu fasenya adalah survival mode gitu. Ya, setelah Ibu bisa lihat bahwa yang lebih powerful itu adalah kalau konsumsinya didorong. Nah, kalau mau dorong itu, kita nggak bisa lakukan dengan monetary policy di dalam short term. Kenapa? Kalau tingkat bunga diturunkan, orang tetap pinjam uang dari bank, hanya loan to deposit ratio-nya turun. Karena itu, satu-satunya dalam kondisi ini, saya sepakat dengan Pak Ubay, mau tidak mau fiscal stimulusnya harus digunakan sebagai jumpstart.
In addition, Khatib Basri assessed that the government must also anticipate the handling of COVID-19 in the future, where many countries are experiencing a second wave of pandemic, so that fiscal capacity is expected to be able to anticipate this happening in the future. From Jakarta, Raharjo Patmo for IDX Channel.
Meanwhile, economists assess that the economic recovery depends on how fast the process of handling COVID-19 is, where currently the trend of investment confidence is now more supported by fundamentals and the handling of the pandemic.
The process of handling the COVID-19 pandemic will determine the success of the provided by the government. The chief economist of Bank Mandiri, Andreas Moro, explained that the recovery process carried out by the government needs to be strengthened in the terms of handling COVID-19. This is to ensure the recovery of investor confidence. Andre gave an example of the large flow of capital to countries with strong economic fundamentals, such as China and Vietnam, compared to the other Asian countries. So that the handling of COVID-19 needs to be strengthened in addition to encouraging economic recovery.
Jadi semakin lama kita berkutat dengan masalah COVID-19, semakin lama juga kita dan semakin kecil juga peluang investor untuk masuk ke sini. Nah, ini terlihat juga dari investor di capital market, di mana sekarang banyak investor di itu yang prefer untuk put back to North Asia dibandingkan dengan masuk ke ASEAN. Kenapa? Karena growth story-nya masuk, gitu. Jadi story pertumbuhannya masuk. Jadi ada 2 negara di Asia yang memang memiliki story pertumbuhan cukup baik, yaitu China dan Vietnam.
Andre also sees that after the recovery in June, various spending indicators have indeed sloped back. This is due to the increasing trend of COVID-19 cases, followed by the large-scale social restrictions, so that public confidence in spending is relatively disrupted. From Jakarta, Raharjo Patmo for IDX Channel.
Bank of Indonesia kept the benchmark 7 days reverse repo rate at 7% as central bank tries to avoid putting further pressure on a falling rupiah. Indonesia's central bank kept interest rates steady, holding fire as it tries to avoid putting further pressure on a falling rupiah, but reiterate its pledge to use quantitative easing to support the coronavirus-hit economy. In short, Bank of Indonesia kept the benchmark 7 days reverse repo rate at 7%, where it has been since July. Central Bank also kept its deposit facility rates at 3.25% and lending facility 4.75% respectively.
Memutuskan untuk mempertahankan BI 7-day reverse repo rate sebesar 4%. Suku bunga deposit facility juga tetap sebesar 3,25% dan suku bunga lending facility juga tetap sebesar 4,75%. Keputusan ini mempertimbangkan perlunya menjaga stabilitas nilai tukar rupiah di tengah inflasi yang diperkirakan tetap rendah.
Periwarjo also estimated that inflation throughout 2020 will be lower than the estimated lower limit of inflation of 2%. From Jakarta, Raharjo Patmo, IDX Channel. As massive rejection to the recent job creation law, the Indonesian Workers' Union Confederation, or KSPI, announced that labor unions are preparing to file judicial review to the Constitutional Court.
The Indonesian Workers' Union Confederation, or KSPI chairperson Said Iqbal announced that labor unions are preparing to take on the option to file for judicial review against the Omnibus Job Creation Law to the Constitutional Court. The first aspect in the passing of the law they plan to file for unconstitutional court review is the process of which the law was designed, how it was deliberated, and how it was finally ratified by the House of Representatives. The other crucial aspect is the deliberation and the handing over of the drafts that did not involve public participation or public hearing. The next aspect they want to have scrutinized is the string of controversial articles across the law's cluster on employment, environment, and farmers. The Indonesian Workers' Union Confederation, or KSPI chairperson Said Iqbal believes that if the court grants their lawsuit, the entire content of the job creation law will be able to be annulled and will not only be limited to the law's cluster on employment. He noted that they will also consider the executive review option. From all sources for IDX Channel.
Market headlines, we'll be right back after the break. Stay tuned.
Pergerakan indeks harga saham gabungan sepanjang perdagangan hari ini tertekan, level 5 ribuan kembali ditinggalkan. Bagaimana analisis Anda?
Masih ada peluang turun lebih lanjut. Kalau misalkan regionalnya memerah, nah maka tidak tentu kemungkinan kita juga akan ketularan kan.
Dan beberapa perbankan yang diduga melakukan transaksi mencurigakan dan semoga bisa menjadi salah satu referensi untuk Anda dan seperti apa ke depannya.
Adi akan ada proyek bikin hunian atau tempat tinggal?
Konsepnya adalah membawa kemudahan masyarakat sekitar Jakarta untuk bekerja di pusat kota. Total saat ini Adik Komputer Property mengembangkan 11 titik ya. Kalau Mas baru beli sekarang mungkin udah ke 3.000 sekian pembeli.
Kita bisa mulai merasakan fase 1 di tahun berapa?
Di tahun 2021.
Senang sekali saya David San Ovo dan dapat hadir menemani Anda dalam program spesial dialog webinar on TV.
Setiap minggunya kita akan membahas tema-tema yang sangat menarik. Apa kabar ibu-ibu sekalian?
Alhamdulillah baik.
Salah satu ambisi daripada Kementerian Koperasi dan UMKM bersama Spesco adalah koperasi keren, baru, digital gitu kan, yang kita bisa IT.
Welcome back. Again, government will deliver pro-business stimulus in the midst of COVID-19. The government will immediately distribute tourism grants amounting to 3.3 trillion rupiah for tourism businesses and local governments. The government will immediately distribute tourism grants amounting to 3.3 trillion rupiah for tourism businesses and local governments. Budget contains some targeted actions to help tourism business where hurting the most. The grant will be used to support increased implementation of health protocols in tourist destinations, as well as help the tourism industry survive the pandemic. Minister of Tourism and Creative Economy Wisnu Tama Kusbandio in his statement said that tourism grant funds through the Ministry of Finance are part of the National Economic Recovery Program. From all sources, IDX Channel. 2020 is kind of an alarming year for all countries because of the emergence of the outbreak called the coronavirus or COVID-19. This outbreak is a concern for the world because many aspects are affected, such as tourism. Government puts high efforts to help restart vital reconstruction work and maintenance on cherished heritage sites, keeping venues open and supporting those working in the sector. Those actions requires huge budget, right? Therefore, government has set aside trillion rupiah and grant funds for the tourism sector. What's the purpose? Where does the fund come from? And let's see the answer in the next graphic. This is the explanation or the detailed explanation about government's grant funds for tourism sector. As a part of National Economic Recovery Program during COVID-19, the total of it as much as 3.3 trillion rupiah. The proposed are increasing regional income and financial recovery for hotel and restaurant. We compiled the data from Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy. In short, government has set aside 3.3 trillion rupiah to be distributed to the state's tourism promotion and development to assist in resuming business operations and restoring economic activity throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. Not only for the businesses, government also highlights needs for the regions. And let's see the proportion through the next graphic. This is the proportion of grant funds for tourism. 30% of it will be allocated for economic and social handling and of regions. Meantime, 70% of it will be allocated for direct assistance to tourism and creative economy. And if we see through the data, tourism sector has a larger portion. The reason is the tourism industry can be defined as an industry involving humans as its main commodity. Therefore, some aspects like hotels, restaurants, airlines, and travel agents who relied on their revenues from tourists suffered a crisis because of this spread of coronavirus. And it is sad because Indonesia is one of the world's premier tourist hotspot. The white sand beaches, tropical climate, beautiful mountains. As the country attracts many tourists, many people in Indonesia depend on tourism sectors. Therefore, the government's grant really matters to the tourism business actors. And however, not all business actors that can get the grant as there are certain requirements. So who are the eligible ones to get the grant? Let's see the next graphic. These are the list of eligible recipients of grant funds for tourism. The first one is pay 15% tax of hotels and restaurant, 5 super priority destinations. And it will be targeted to 10 priority destinations and included to 100 calendar or event in 2020. And given the uncertain times created by the coronavirus, of course, tourism business actors are grateful to have the grants. The Ministry of Tourism has also prepared a budget of 119 billion for the free certification program for the tourism industry in 34 provinces in Indonesia. The certification is given to ensure cleanliness, health, safety, and environmental sustainability for industries related to the tourism sector to restore public trust. Tourism sector has to bleed further because there are still large-scale social restrictions in some areas or some places such as Jakarta, for example. And we are still in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, and many countries are still implementing restrictions on tourism. And let's see how far the tourism sector has plunged so far in the next graphic. This is the performance of tourism in July 2019 and 2020. So the total of the tourist arrivals in July 2019 as much as 1.4 million people. Meantime, in July 2020, it only reached 159,800 tourists, or it down by 89.12%. And the good thing is the number of visits increased slightly by 0.95% compared to June 2020, although it has been increasing on a monthly basis. Head of Statistic of Indonesia, Suharyanto, said that foreign tourist visits are still very limited. The majority of foreign arrivals are dominated by business purposes, not leisure. And it is absolutely right that tourism sector should be a priority during this COVID-19 pandemic. And this grant support by government is very crucial. Stay tuned on Market Headlines because we'll be right back after the break.
I'm Clara Antawijaya. I'm Associate Producer and News Presenter on Market Headlines. As Market Headlines starts at 4:30 p.m., which is in line with the closing market, therefore we summarize market conditions only for you. And my job in here as a journalist, I give concise and accurate news for the audience. And also, being a journalist is not only a job for me, but it is also a passion.
Saat ini lebih mudah untuk mendapatkan informasi mengenai perkembangan ekonomi dan bisnis di Indonesia dengan aplikasi IDX Channel. Mulai dari berita, makro dan mikroekonomi, politik hingga hiburan. Anda juga dapat berbagi artikel, foto, dan video ke semua platform media sosial yang Anda miliki. Beragam informasi hari ini bisa di-download di dalam aplikasi idxchannel.com. IDX Channel, Your Trustworthy Economic, Business, and Capital Market Channel.
And we're on the last segment. At the Jakarta Composite Index intraday movement, earlier today, JCI was open at the level of 5,134.66. And approaching the closing time on the first session, the index was on the level of 5,148.08, and the index was showing strengthening trend by the second session closing time. Index was closed at the level of 5,176.1. In short, JCI went up 0.85%. And next, we're going to see the sectoral movement leading the dynamics of today's trading. We got mining as the leader of the strengthening trend that went up 3.72%. Infrastructure went up 1.69%. And we got construction as the leader of the weakening trend that went down 0.92%. And agriculture went down 0.36%. And moving on to the top gainers and top losers. And here are the key highlights from today's trading session. ANTM went up 24.84% to the level of 955 per share. Agro went up 14.42% to the level of 492 per share. And KF went up 4.6% to the level of 3,410 per share. Prisa went up 24.89% to the level of 1,405 per share. Meantime, the top losers for today's trading, we got Boga, went down 1.46% to the level of 1,350 rupiah per share. BBKP went down 1.56% to the level of 252 rupiah per share. INDF went down 1.72% to the level of 7,125 rupiah per share. And TCPI went down 4.15% to the level of 5,200 rupiah per share. And this is the intraday movement of rupiah towards US dollar. Open at the level of 14,780, rupiah was also showing strengthening trend towards US dollar. I was closed at the level of 14,786. In summary, rupiah went up 0.11%. Indonesian state-owned bank, Bank Mandiri, Bank Rakyat Indonesia, and Bank Negara Indonesia signed a conditional merger agreement on Sharia commercial banks merger.
The Indonesian government, through the Ministry of State-Owned Enterprises, plans to merge the three state-owned Sharia banks, namely Bank BRI Syariah, Bank Syariah Mandiri, and Bank BNI Syariah. This plan has even been included in the conditional merger agreement signed by Bank Rakyat Indonesia, Bank Mandiri, and Bank Negara Indonesia. Regarding the signing of the conditional merger agreement, Deputy President Director of Bank Mandiri, Heri Gunadi, said that the signing was the first step to initiate the merger process to become one of the largest national Islamic banks in Indonesia. In relation to this plan, all public companies in the merger process have submitted information disclosure to the Indonesia Stock Exchange and Financial Services Authority, or OJK. Meanwhile, Deputy Director of Bank Rakyat Indonesia, Catur Budi Harto, added that the merged Sharia Bank is expected to have a larger engine, economies of scale, and market reach to optimize the economic and financial potential of Sharia in Indonesia. The combined strength of the three existing Sharia banks will be able to have a more complete spectrum of Sharia services under one roof for various needs and customer segments, starting from MSMEs, retail and commercial, Sharia wholesale, up to corporate and Sharia investment. From all sources for IDX Channel.
Tabungan Negara, or BTN, recorded a growth in third-party funds of 18.17% year-on-year in the third quarter of 2020. According to BTN management, not only supported by various innovations that have been made, the existence of quantitative easing has also contributed to the positive movement of third-party funds. In line with this increase, the portion of BTN's current saving account was also observed to increase. The increase in low-cost funds is in line with BTN's business target to boost savings. Then the position of BTN's loan-to-deposit ratio is currently below the level of 95% or around 93% as of September 2020. BTN management claims this position is one of the strongest liquidity positions of BTN today. COVID-19 Handling Special Task Force bolster alliance with 1,108 college students to be behavioral changing education ambassador. This is as a way to socialize health protocol to public. As many as 1,108 students from 72 Indonesian universities become behavioral changing education ambassador. This aims to raise public awareness. The head of COVID-19 Handling Special Task Force, Doni Monardo, said that currently there are 17% of Indonesians who have the perception that they will not be infected by COVID-19. Who that this ambassador program is assigned to provide an explanation that COVID-19 is real. Moreover, the national death toll reaches 1 million people and 35 million people are exposed to the virus in the world.
Kementerian Agama, Kementerian Pendidikan dan Kebudayaan, dan Ketua Bidang Perubahan Perilaku untuk adanya program melibatkan para mahasiswa dalam rangka perubahan perilaku. Dan di sini saya mencatat ada 1.108 mahasiswa yang terlibat.
And step aside from market condition as coronavirus pandemic takes big role on current economic situation. And here it is, an update data about coronavirus globally. news close our market headlines today. Please enjoy our next program on IDX Channel, your trustworthy economic, business, and capital market channel. And before saying goodbye, I would like to remind you on what Mang said. Please do comply with health protocol by using masks, physical distancing, and avoiding crowd. Also washing your hand often with soap through overflowing water. I'm Wicky Adrian. Have a nice evening. Stay safe.
Key of success pertama adalah kita harus mempunyai bekal diri kita yang cukup. Pengetahuan pertama, terus kedua adalah networking. Kita harus mempunyai networking yang cukup, terus kemudian kita harus mempunyai value di dalam diri kita. Kalau misalnya kita sudah mempunyai value, tentunya kita akan dilihat dengan orang lain bahwa kita menjadi seorang yang mempunyai kualitas yang cukup untuk memajukan suatu perusahaan. Kemudian setelah kita mempunyai value dan kita mempunyai mempunyai posisi yang cukup, tentunya setelah itu kita harus menjadi seorang pemimpin yang baik. Nah, pemimpin yang baik harus mempunyai kemampuan speed, dalam arti bahwa menyelesaikan suatu masalah dengan cepat, terus kemudian menyelesaikan masalah dengan kualitas yang cukup baik, dan terakhir bahwa kita harus